day, although I've since changed. Tuesday will be red and green day, and Wednesday is formal day. The German Honor Society Christmas clog decorating contest is now taking place. Each first hour class has had the opportunity to decorate a traditional German clog, with the class winner taking home a secret prize. Spanish Honor Society has been busy exchanging pen pal letters with 3rd and 5th graders from bilingual students at Schurz. They discussed important topics like Acción de Gracias, or Thanksgiving, and Deportes y Pasatiempos, or sports and hobbies. Student council ran Callin' Out this past Thursday, answering phones as Sprinkles, Sprinkles 2, Sparkles, Buddy, and Snowy the Elves. Kids told Santa's helpers what they wanted for Christmas: Legos and Barbies, and one kid even said that he wanted the new iPhone. Interact Student Rotary and Academic traveled to Chicago on Saturday. They explored the Field Museum, Shedd Aquarium, and Art Institute. Did you know that we're in a blood shortage? 38,000 blood donations are needed every day. Thankfully, Mr. Gibbons' health observations class hosted an American Red Cross blood drive. Students and teachers gave the gift of life all day long, donating gallons of blood that will save many lives, and they celebrated by eating their cookies and juice. Over the past month, the Watertown High School carolers have caroled throughout the town. From meetings, nursing homes, local businesses, and schools, each gig has left a little more holiday cheer to all who listen. And on that note, please enjoy this Christmas poem. 'Twas the week before Christmas in Watertown so great, the students are excited to soon take off for the break. They'll say goodbye to their teachers with glee and with cheer, wishing them a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So here's to the school board and all who oversee. Have a wonderful break, and may you find gifts under the tree. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. We'll see you in the new year, shining and bright. Thank you.
All right, other items under announcements and recognitions?
And I've got 2 donation announcements, one from Baker Ullman for $1,000 towards our Skills USA. And then also one from the Smith family for $250 for our Skills USA program. I want to thank them sincerely. They and a number of different community businesses and other people help make that program happen, and we can't be more thankful for their input.
Round of applause for David. All right, and we'll send these around so you can take a look at them. Anything else under communications?
Just my report.
Okay. Which we don't do until we get to reports.
Oh, yeah, I know we're gonna get there.
Okay, ready? You're so excited about it. Ready? No, we have strategic discussion.
Oh. Almost.
Okay, you're so excited. Okay. All right, our first item under strategic discussion is the safety drill evaluations and school security assessments. Superintendent.
Yeah, so we have a number of files in there for you to peruse, and I'm sorry that they were kind of coming in throughout the day. Just a reminder that we are doing some transitioning as far as jobs, but also the short runway that we had between meetings, and just the realization of, oh, we got to get that. So they're there for you to look at and peruse. I did have general questions, at least from one board member, about how things are done. Has anything been done differently since we've last reviewed them? One of those questions would be, for instance, one of the schools, reported that they wanted to make some changes. And so if there are any changes or anything that our administration can highlight from last year to this year, or any thing in any of the safety report material that you had, could you share that at this time? So I'm sorry, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but is there anything differently that you may have done in one of your buildings, or anything else that you'd like to make us aware of, or anything that you have planned coming up for a safety drill or anything? Mark?
I just, when we had done in the spring the evacuation drill, I had some concerns with points within my school, and so I actually did walk our way through with the chief and officer Stacy, just to go through plans and make through that we were doing things in the best way, just talk through a couple items that had me concerned. So could have spent a good 20 minutes doing that. That was well spent.
Okay, can you share with us anything that came to that meeting?
Just some of our protocols when it comes to fire drills.
I guess I'll share, we had the same evacuation site for several years at Douglas. There's really not any very close buildings that are large enough for an entire school to go to. So I won't say where, but we worked with the police department and Officer Bresser at the school and reevaluated and have a different site, kind of probably mid last year that was finalized, and so that's moving forward.
Okay.
Which was a good conversation with the police department to talk through what we were thinking. They felt the same thing, so then worked through a change of site.
Okay. I also know that as a team, we've talked about we're working on doing a variety of different drills. And if those aren't scheduled yet, or if you haven't seen those in the paperwork, know that those are coming, whether it's fire, tornado, lockdown, evacuation. Jason, could you just share a little bit about your evacuation drill that had happened earlier in October?
Yeah, it went really well. We've broken down the administrative team in the police department into 5 kind of pairs, and we broke the building up. There's some parts of Riverside I didn't know existed until the evacuation drill. Like there's a big area around the pool upstairs, which I had no idea. So until I checked it off my little map. So our evacuation of Good Shepherd was good. Our 7th graders all fit in the hallway. We found that out barely. And we had a neighbor who had decided it was a good day to fly his drone and kind of see everything that was happening, which freaked us out and freaked the police department out because we don't want people taping what our kind of measures look like. So we had a good conversation with that neighbor and got that figured out. But all in all, it was really good. There was just some minor things that we just talked to a couple individual teachers about. But really, it's been a while since we had done a real evacuation drill, and it was well done.
Okay.
I would just throw out that our drills pay off. We got the surprise tornado warning, and man, we got to our basement and into our shelter areas quick, and kids were a little scared because we let them know when the drills are happening, and they knew this wasn't a drill, so to deal with some of the little ones, but it went very smooth.
I remember that day. I was
Leave your lunch.
Yeah, and at the high school, like over the lunch hour when almost 400 kids are in the lunchroom as it's happening in real time and alerts are popping up on phones. It was good, but I mean, we rely on a strong team and communication, and thankfully it went smoothly.
Anything that you took as notes during that? Because that was a live drill that just was put on us. Anybody have notes as to something that they'll do differently?
I think just making sure, because people were in common areas, and you always, when you practice your drill, you're practicing from your classroom. So where your classroom goes isn't necessarily where you go if you're in the lunchroom. So that was just an awareness for our staff to think through. Where you are in the building determines where you go for a shelter. And like I said, you don't normally practice from that type of an area.
The other thing that I'll tell the board is our safety committee does review all the drills that happen and plan for new drills in the future. And another thing that our safety committee is going to be looking at as we meet in January and further on is that drop off and pickup at the high school has been noted by a couple of parents that it's been kind of a little bit out of control. Mr. Kerr sent out some good reminders to parents and everything else, and that helps a little bit, but now we're starting to see again towards the holiday season here, it's kind of getting a little crazy, kind of at all the buildings right now. And so when we get back, we're just going to have to remind parents again of our procedures. So, does anybody have any specific questions?
Board members, specific questions? Lauren?
I do. Is there, with going to the safety drills, is there a specific order of drills, or is it like you have a calendar of drills and you always do this drill this time, this drill, or is it?
Yeah. So by law, we have to have a safety drill of some kind every month.
Okay.
You know, you can get a waiver if there's just, you know, really bad stretch of weather or whatever. But even then, you can do a tornado drill, which is all inside, or, you know, those kinds of things. So it's not very often that either the fire department or the police department would give us a waiver, but you can seek one. But we try to do those for sure every month, and then throughout the year, a couple of safety drills, whether it's a lock and hold or an evacuation drill or something like that. Even the Sims man training that I shared at the last board meeting that we did in respect with the EMT services, that counts as a drill. And so anytime when you do that instruction or planning with staff and students especially, that counts. So, and then this is your time of year, every year, once a year in December or November, the board reviews all that information, and we talk about it as a whole community or a board, and if there's something else you'd like to see happen, now's your time to really help share that information with us. Hopefully you see that, you know, in each building, we're really taking it serious, and we have all the information there for you to review.
Other comments or questions from board members? Craig?
The only other observation I had was, is it a possibility to try to get together a consistent style form that's used from building to building? Just because it almost, I look back and I'm like, if we're inconsistent in one area, we want to make sure that, you know, we're consistent about the practice. Going forward.
That's one thing that I noticed. Again, it's my first time through. I do have to say this: they're all using the approved form of some kind or another, whether it's the electronic one or the paper one or whatever. But having our safety committee review that and say what do we want to hone in on and do might be a good thing. I kind of noted that for my safety committee to deal with, but it's a good idea.
Okay. Other comments or questions, Diana?
Do we ever have any times where they are unannounced to students, or I don't know if it's ever?
I don't know that information from your standpoint. I know that like fire drills and stuff like that are unannounced.
Even the intruder drills, each of those scenarios, or are those typically announced as well?
I would say that those are typically, like the intruder drills are typically announced, just as a opportunity for parents and students to not be, to take it seriously, but not to be overly
Anxious.
trauma associated with that.
We usually announce like the week of, or like it's going to happen in that time. We usually don't announce the exact time to students as we go through programs.
And for our safety drills, there's, for our like safety, and not fire and tornado, the other safety drills, typically there's like something you talk about with your class beforehand, so that they remember the procedures and routines. So there's a little foreshadowing before the actual drill takes place.
And my only purpose in asking is, in a fire drill, there are situations when it's not announced, kids are in the bathrooms. What happens when they're in the bathrooms? Or if there's lock and hold, whatever, they're in the bathrooms, where do you go? So sometimes not having it as announced, but then talking about right thereafter, it's like, oh, this is more realistic. What are you doing there in gym class, or they're in specials? Wait, it's like you guys announced with lunches, all those things come to surface, the things that you need to focus on, I guess.
You see probably the times of the drills, I'm guessing are all, I know we plan for them different times of day, so they might be in specials for one of their drills.
I think you'd be surprised because even when they're planned or even they're announced, we might still find a student in the bathroom or there's something else happening that, you know, we just have to respond to.
Okay. Other questions or comments from board members? All right. Thank you all very much. Our next section is our gallery walk, and for this we're going to split up into 3 groups. We have a group in the superintendent's office, one in the assistant superintendent's office / conference room, and the third is in the small conference room, which is right around the corner here. So we'll just go 1, 2, 3. You're in the superintendent's office to start. Craig, you're with me. The 3 of you can go to the small conference room. We'll be in the assistant. And then Margaret is going to be our timekeeper, and she's going to keep us moving. 15 minutes, generally speaking, with each of the 3 groups.
Yep, so why don't
We're
we,
gonna rotate through, right?
why don't we give everybody about 5 minutes
Yep,
to
let's
get
give them a chance.
set up and rolling, and Margaret, Dave, you can kind of just rotate around to see if anybody needs help or anything.
We'll split up. Timing.
Yeah, that all gladly.
You love the timing.
Apologize to the timing versus.
Sorry, Margaret.
Yeah, we tried.
All right, pick back up. So first, I just want to say thank you for everyone who came this evening and the very focused efforts to give us concise presentations that we could all take in. So thank you very much for that. I know I had an opportunity to ask a few questions, and I appreciated that. Other board members, do you have any high-level observations about the process overall, or any particular item you wanted to highlight? Diane, I'm sorry, Tina, go ahead. Sorry.
The other
I'm looking at her
Johnson.
talking to
No
me, so-
problem.
Johnson.
I appreciate that, just as far as like the overall themes, like progress and growth and narrowing it on things, not trying to tackle absolutely everything because, we can't chase, can't have our feet in 2 canoes or, chase 5 rabbits at the same time, that kind of thing. So I appreciated, kind of narrowing the scope and really focusing on those items and moving the needle. So thanks.
I just thought it was well
Well
prepared.
I know, it's like vision, goes right to vision.
They were all well prepared and stuck to the general construct of what we were looking for and got a lot of good information. Obviously, not nearly enough time for, I don't even call it Q&A, just discussion. But we'll work on that. We knew it was going to be tight, and so thanks to Margaret for.
And that's why it's a gallery.
The gong literally came in through the door.
Pretty good.
Pulled us out.
And honestly, if you wouldn't have been wanting to go longer, then I'd be like, but the fact that you just wanted to keep talking shows a lot of passion about what you're doing, so I appreciate that.
Other board members, any other comments?
I guess I would offer, sometimes it's, you look at the numbers and it's easy to get frustrated. But I would offer this, that we'll get there. We'll keep working on it.
Is there any specific questions that the board has, something that sparked a thought or you just couldn't talk about? Please send those to me.
Okay.
And then I will help, do the same from the administrative standpoint. Are there questions that a board member posed to you, something you're thinking about that next time we do the gallery walk again, we can kind of focus in on some of that. I'd like to make sure that we have a follow-up to you because it is hard to get all that done in just the 15 minutes per, but that's what a gallery walk is.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to our report section, starting with the superintendent's report.
All right, I have a good 30-minute presentation at least that I want to give tonight. So just hopefully you're in your comfy spot because I want to make sure.
I'll be 50 by the time.
You'll be 50 by the time I'm done. Tomorrow night. Okay, so I really don't have a lot of slides tonight, just 3. I want to tell you that it's exciting for me to be in this new community, see how things are being done differently, see just what the focus has been and what the focus is going to be. The gallery walks today are an example of that, kind of where we're coming from, things that we're trying to get there, and other strategies that we're thinking about together to hone in on. And so I just want to say that in all areas, our staff, our students and families, you as a board, the season of giving has been tremendous. And I've noted that throughout the last month and a half easily. The programs, food drive celebrations really show a culture of care, respect and love. And for those who are out there who aren't seeing that in our schools, we need to be able to highlight that better. And hopefully, as we work on our communication plan and our communication audit, and we talk about what that looks like, we can do that, because if your eye is on the good that we're doing, not only with these things like culture of care, respect, and love, we are focused on a lot of things for our students. And, you know, academics is one of them, but you saw through our gallery walk and other things that we are about much, much more than that. And that's how we're going to get to be the best school district in the state of Wisconsin. So just recognitions for all that. Not moving, so if you can move or advance me there. Just want to let people know that there are opportunities should they want to join us in our team and our effort as a school district to advance those. That we do have a board election date coming up here. And if you are interested in that information, you can log on to our school webpage. There's a connection there that will take you right to the documents you need to either decide if you're rerunning or if you're standing aside. Those, by the way, have to be done by the end of this week if you are somebody who's up for re-election. And then if you are at large or a larger population and you just want to throw your name in the hat, January 3rd is that deadline. And then lastly, some other important reminders. We are off December 23rd through January 2nd. It might look like January 22nd, or excuse me, December 22nd, if you're looking at the weather report, so keep an eye on that. That's very good. I'm just saying that when 3 weather stations and NOAA calls on superintendents for an emergency meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock, it's probably going to be worth noting. Not saying I'm making any decisions right now. I'm just saying that. But we also have, oops, I didn't change November committee. It's supposed to be January committee members. You can see the template I used. But January 10th is Educational Services, January 11th Planning. I'm highlighting Human Resources because we talked about moving that date to January 9th, and I believe that's a go. And then January 18th is Fiscal, and January 26th is our regular monthly meeting. And we do have the 18th through the 20th at the State Education Convention for those of you who are attending. And that's all. Happy holidays.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions on that report? And we will move on to the committee reports. And computer's freezing up here. First up is fiscal. I will report on Doug's behalf. So the agenda items again for fiscal was an update on the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 project schedules. Worth noting about math curriculum, that study continues to move forward, and science and social studies will be taken on after that. And we're looking at about 2 years out on the science and social studies in terms of actual implementation. There was an update from CG Schmidt. They presented several different options with regard to the air conditioning projects for Schurz and Douglas. And the committee chose, of the 3, which you can find in the committee documentation, they chose option 2 to recommend, which is the one that was actually closest to the original budget as well. We do have important hires. One, we have our new business manager, which we approved at the last meeting. And then we have our new buildings and grounds supervisor as well, and that is coming up on our agenda here this evening. There was discussion about the construction manager and help with that for all these projects that we have underway. There was also an update on the communication consultant work, which is actually happening over in the planning committee, but important to make sure that fiscal is aware of that. And then there was a discussion on a number of identified or prospective projects. And I would say the bottom line for these is they're going to be worked into the overall comprehensive capital improvement plan for the district, or they'll fit into a bucket that's more operational, that'll be handled on an annual year basis. But we really want to drive those through that 10-year plan framework. That's really We have that plan in place, we should continue to drive things through that, no matter how it's being funded. Whether it's coming out of our Fund 46, whether it's coming out of our Fund 10 general fund, whether it's coming from, ESSER funds, which also flow through Fund 10, or Fund 80, which is our community programs. We should still drive it through that planning process. Any comments or questions on that report? All right, HR?
Excellent. We met on December 12th at 5:30. And we had special guest principals, Emily Lester-Marquetz, and then social worker Chris Wettig. We went through the consent agenda of staff appointments, resignations, and terminations, of which there is a resolution tonight to cover that on the consent agenda. Responsive classrooms overview. So the principals and the social worker gave us information regarding the Responsive Classrooms program, which is all at the elementary level, and what they're doing to support positive culture regarding, students and staff as far as interaction and things like that, and how it's affecting climate and relationship building and things like that. Diana recommended implementation of progress monitoring and collection of data over time to evaluate the success of the program, which I believe that's all in process there and things like that, as these are newer initiatives that are being worked on. As far as committee agenda planning, we discussed future meeting schedule and agenda items. We did decide to change the January meeting from January 16th. We moved it up a week to January 9th. Margaret did contact Bill Foster from School Perceptions, and he is available to join us on January 9th. At that time, School Perceptions is our teacher satisfaction survey. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that and be able to ask him some questions as far as, do those questions, work for us? We have the data that we can do comparison. We're going to be evaluating as far as the timing of when we get the survey and things like that. We're also, in January, we had also talked about reviewing information about performance review process for administrators and support staff, and we requested an update on the employee wellness committee. Margaret also suggested a future meeting item for teacher contract administration laws and process. We adjourned at 6:25. Our next meeting is Monday, January 9th.
All right, comments or questions in that report? Thank you very much. Educational services.
Yes, Ed Services met, all members are met on December 6th. All members were present, plus several others. Probably the bulk of the discussion had to do with Ready, Set, Go, which is a resolution on this evening. And it was felt strongly that we were able to codify it such that it wasn't something that was still as an ongoing debate. At the same time, there is still a general awareness that it's not yet in its best form. And so to keep moving forward, the board and Ed Services is still interested in some quantifiable data, but at the same time, we felt it necessary to move it forward so that the principals and staff could start rallying around it, and hence the resolution that is on the agenda later tonight for not to use up more than 2 instructional days in the 2023-2024 school year, and that can be revisited again next year. We touched it then again on the math adoption program, which we had also in the month of November, and that's going well, but it might slide 1 month for the recommendation to the board for an approval. A little bit of discussion on the tutoring program and the gifted and talented, which are both still open and active, and are open and active initiatives. And then lastly was the district report card, which was available, I believe, to us at that time. And we all heard somewhat about that tonight in the different rooms that we visited during the gallery walk. And something that I asked selfishly for, but I think Dave has indulged, is how does STAR relate to Forward, relate to Scorecard, relate to ACT, and making sure we're looking at the right tool at the right time to tell us what's going on. Obviously, there's no real point in looking at a scorecard or graduation rates if you needed to do something in 3rd grade. 3rd grade's a little bit late to be trying to fix your graduation rate 15 years later. So for my edification, and to enhance both what I hope will be the discussions in this room, is to kind of have a primer. I know Dave started on it because he and I were going back and forth on what would be on that, just to try to educate current board as well as future board members on how one exam or one test or one score relates to another one, and where the staff and admin is focused on, so that we're asking better questions of our staff, and they're asking better questions of the teachers, and maybe even then asking better questions of the students. So I don't think it's something that everybody in the room doesn't know. I just know that I don't know it. So like I said, I'm going to waste some of Dave's time putting that together, and then hopefully that will be useful for current as well as future board members. Other than that, we adjourned, and the next one is January 10th at 7:30 at RMS.
Thank you. Comments or questions on that report? Or is it just something that?
Yeah, I just would like to add something I don't typically add in this venue, but you all saw the action plan calendar that had laid out what we were doing.
You're talking about math.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I just want to highlight that on this Wednesday at the high school, from 2:30 to 4:45, we have a illustrative math. And we actually have an individual coming who works for CISA 2, but is also a math coach for illustrative math. And he's taking us through a 6th grade lesson from start to finish. So there'll be all of the 6-8 math teachers, 9-12 math teachers, some special ed, some dual language. We've invited some elementary folks to come and see it because they're investigating illustrative math. So I'm not telling you you all have to come, because you might be buying salt and sand for Thursday, according to Jared. But if you are curious what we do and how that looks, you're more than welcome. It's the high school media center. We have a soft start of 2:30 because we're giving people time to get there, but for sure we will be started by 2:45.
Okay, so it's a full lesson, but there's no exam at the end, right?
No exam. There will be an exit ticket. Because that's what we use tests to go through lessons.
6th grade math, I'm not sure.
And if you don't come, I mean, I'll take good notes and everybody's excited to, this is the first time we've had a rep or someone that's gonna come and take us from, we asked, would you take us from the start of a lesson through the end of a lesson, what it would look like, so we can feel it and understand every component. So I apologize for taking a few minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we'll move on to policy.
I wasn't there.
I can go for policy. Let me get to the right one. So members present were Doug Will, Tina Johnson, and Craig Wartman. The chair, your chair, is not in attendance. I was also present. The policies that were up for discussion, which is stage 1, is where somebody sponsors a policy that's in our queue to come forward, and then we talk about and discuss whether or not we're going to take further action on that item or not. 5330 extracurricular activities, Tina Johnson sponsored. She shared that she was wondering how we were meeting the equitable standard in our policy. And so we decided as a team to have administration look at that and kind of report back to the committee about equitable and how do we treat equity or equitable services within our activities. That was more of a function mostly of financial discussion, but we want to take a broad look and then bring it back. And then we'll see if we have to write or change any policy based on our findings. So that's kind of where that is. For work to be done, the anti-bullying policy 5362, and with respect to relationships, Lori is sponsoring that policy for review. Major changes were suggested for review. The administration will use her suggestions from the DPI model policy on anti-bullying, as well as some other recommendations that the committee put to discussion and together. And we're going to bring a first draft for review at our next committee meeting. There were no major revisions of policies. Minor revisions, policy 5220 through 5240. Not all of them, but some of them in the queue. Grading systems, retention, procedures for retention of students, 4th and 8th grade promotion, specific graduation requirements, early graduation, graduation exercises, and graduation. A number of them had some small minor suggestions that the committee has asked us in verbiage, or an old reference to an old test that didn't get caught, or something just in the cleanup. So we do have some cleanup on those. But also more pressing is the committee itself wanted to dig into policy 5220 at greater depth, and Craig Wortman is going to be sponsoring that and doing some work with me to get it ready for discussion. And then we adjourned at 6:55. Our next meeting is in February on the 15th at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you. Comments or questions on that? I'd just like to offer that I like the process that is in place here. I think this is a substantial movement forward. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jared.
I asked him
Putting
how
that
it
in
went.
place.
I asked him how it went. He says it went very well. I says, good. Then I don't have to show up to the next one.
That's not right. I told you that was not right.
I said, you finished the policy meeting in record time. Like
That's right. I don't know that it was record time,
I'm the problem.
and we had healthy discussion. I think really healthy discussion.
Well
I
done,
think
team.
I think it's a good process. It's a constructive way for board members to bring up things that they have questions about and create a clear path for action going to occur. Here's how it's going to occur.
Yeah, board, administration, or community members, if somebody wants to sponsor an idea, a thought, or change, all I have to do is get it on the discussion queue, and when it comes up, either the chair or I notifies the sponsor and says, hey, can you come tell us why you wanted us to have this reviewed? And then we make a decision. Do we want to work on that, or do we not want to work on that?
All right, thank you very much. And then last is the planning committee, and they did meet on the 12th, and it was a meeting to review proposals from our communications consultants, prospective partners, and that was what occurred there. There was no action directly out of that meeting. Our next item then is the consent agenda, resolution 9169. The consent agenda includes our board meeting minutes, our committee summaries, personnel staffing changes, that's both resignations, retirements, and hirings, the approval of bills, and the first and second reading of policies. I thought we had the first readings, but they weren't attached in here.
We did
Okay.
not.
Okay.
First reading.
Okay, that's right.
Because there was one or two of those minor revisions I could have, but
Okay, all right.
we decided to wait until we had the bulk of it.
All right, do I hear a motion on 9169?
So, second.
Moved by Craig, seconded by David. Comments or questions on the motion?
Question over the, and I understand it's part of our policy that it's there, that we have the approval of bills.
Yes.
What are we doing?
So that,
With that, when, I mean, it goes through fiscal to some degree, but fiscal doesn't take any action, there's not necessarily.
and that's
a
because this
second.
can't take action.
Yeah,
But it's
there's no-
it's the check register essentially is what we've just validated that we've paid these.
And really, fiscal's job is to clearinghouse to ask those questions. Should there be a large flag, then at the board meeting is when you would share that large flag or issue here with the board before you would ratify them.
Yeah,
So
I know it feels a
that-
little weird that we're
So that
retroactively.
check register could be the content that we're approving?
Yes, it really is.
I would make a recommendation that that be added in the future so we know what we're.
Oh, you mean adding it to content?
Yeah, attaching it. Good. All right, any other comments or questions on the motion?
Can I ask a question about that? I did notice there was I know we had a list of over $20,000.
Yep.
There was a steamer that was purchased that was over 20. Was that, did we have to approve that? in the past. I don't recall that, but
So
it was,
I'll get follow-up for you in terms of the process that they went through.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then I'll go ahead and take the roll call. Diana,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
David Schrader,
Yes.
David Smith,
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mike,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
and the motion carries. And we will move on to our next action item, which is resolution 9170, which is additions to the 2023-2024 Watertown High School Program of Studies. Do I hear a motion on 9170?
So moved.
Second.
By David, seconded by Diana. And the resolution refers to the material that was in Educational Services Committee for your convenience that is repeated on paper at your desks.
And just for clarification, I didn't allude to it this time as it wasn't a subject of our December meeting, but these were all reviewed in our November meeting.
Yes.
And the educators were there to present on each of these subjects.
All right, comments or questions on the motion? Tina?
As far as the recommendations to move, because I recognize some of these courses as far as like they're not considered AP right now. So I'm just wondering why the move to AP. I don't know if it's a staffing thing or if it's to gain more credits or.
I'm
Yeah, I
really,
mean,
Aaron or Dave
Sorry,
or
where this
Jared.
question
We'll head it to Josh.
Yeah, so the math department actually brought forward in terms of offering the AP, the new AP course that you see in front of you. So it's a way to still like be able to go through some more content, but then give students the access to pursuing the college credit if it's something that they were interested in doing. So the math department thought that was it was a nice seamless transition in terms of why not, why not, and then be able to incorporate that into AP. And then the AP Spanish language and the AP Spanish language and culture is an evolution of the dual language program, which would then be like part of that next step and then give students access to college credit. So we do have a bunch of different AP courses at the high school level. And these ones just seem to make sense along with, with what the groups of teachers and staff were hoping for.
And one of the things we talked about at the committee level was that now with AP, the rigor may or may not have to be bumped up. I mean, if they're already rigorous enough at the honors level, but at least going AP, there is a scope and sequence that must be followed to achieve that A. And B, like one of my questions is, okay, if a kid already has had pre-calc this year, can they still get those AP credits for it? They can take the test next year. They can do the AP prep class and still have access to that. So it's not like a kid missed out if they choose to go that route, where in the past, like my kid, for example, wouldn't have gotten these college credits, where now they can.
May recall through last year, the board agreed to add a freshman level AP course, AP Human Geography, which is a gateway course that we think will portend future AP opportunities for kids. So we're broadening the access that way. And this is a factor in calculating things like US News and World Report, best schools, distinctions and so forth. So there are those sort of external things I think that come into play as well. Certainly not primary, but yeah, it's, and then of course we have the, our CTE course offerings as well on the back that Mr. Bowman presented. So balance of things.
I think the one thing, if I direct you, Josh, that we didn't discuss it at services that came up a little bit after is AP puts you into the need to be doing the courses first try, second try, and a
something other than AP courses in your third try. So for a lot of these kids that are gonna be heavy into the AP honors, it's gonna create an offset year. Do you have any solutions? Or talking through that a little bit, how are we navigating that?
Yeah, I think part of it comes with academic planning to see which courses you might be able to take as a junior or senior, to see which courses, might work. I know, it's come up in the past in terms of some departments offering AP courses in like alternating years to try to see if we give more people access to courses in alternating year. Like an example of that might be AP Environmental Science and AP Biology, right? We offer in alternating years to try and give more people access to those.
But you're gonna end up taking math, science, social studies, and English, and you're in all AP. That's 4 of your 5 classes, first try, second try, and then third try, you don't have academic classes.
Correct. I mean, you're right. I mean, and we do offer the AP prep third try,
Yeah.
as an option. to be
That
able to
gets
continue
you
that
doing
and
something for the
so that's
first
one. We're all correct, right? So they're, I understand what you're saying in terms of that info, right? It's a little bit of a lopsided schedule if you think throughout the school year.
People have to make a decision. I mean, you can't do it all, and my messaging around AP is often, what are you passionate about? Sometimes I think we're motivated by putting our name on the wall of fame, but, what are you passionate about? Go after those kinds of things and be selective, as Josh had mentioned. And so the academic counseling piece really comes into play, so.
But we're replacing the honors with these, so that's not an option. So your option is take AP to pre-calc or non-honors pre-calc.
Tina, go ahead.
Just one last question. I'm sorry, this is a detail thing. I just wanted to make sure, so the AP Spanish language, I believe previously when it was an AP, if you got I think it was a certain grade in there, then you got like retroactive, like 14 Spanish credits and things like that. Does that still allow for that when that's an AP class?
So the new ones are proposed are new courses that haven't been offered ever before at the high school. I want to make sure that I'm understanding your question.
Okay, so
the
maybe.
fifth year, are you talking about the fifth year Spanish as a senior, kids that take,
No,
senior
I'm
graders?
like, so for example, if you took Spanish freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, your senior year, if you, prior to this, if you got an A or whatever in that class, then you were eligible for 14 retroactive college credits.
Sure, and then you would go take that, you would take the placement test at your, at your college and then.
Right.
Yes.
So that doesn't,
This is dual language students.
oh, that's
This
for
course
dual language
is
students. Oh,
dual
gotcha, I'm
language. This
sorry,
isn't the
I'm sorry, my
traditional-
confusion, thank you. Okay, I'm done.
That's right. Any other questions on this? All right, then I'll go to roll call vote. Tina?
Yes,
David Schrader?
Yes.
David Smith?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Mike?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
And the motion carries. All right, then we are at resolution 9171, which is Ready, Set, Go conferences for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I hear a motion on 9171?
so moved.
Second.
Moved by Tina, seconded by Mike. Is that correct? Okay. Comments or questions on this resolution?
So if I'm reading this resolution correctly, it says that it's in regard to not exceed 2 instructional days. So if let's just say this resolution were to fail, what does that mean? Does that mean that Ready, Set, Go conferences would be utilized outside of instructional time? Or does it mean that, does that open the door for more than 2 instructors?
It does not mean we're gonna do more. This allows us up to that 2-day window, not taking any more than 2 days, which is centered around one of the largest pieces of the discussion at Ed Services as to how much time we're taking instructionally. And then, we talked about trying to estimate from staff how much time we were recouping by doing assessment early. So there was some efforts made by the administrative team to try to collect and share that information either through a resource data that they brought forward or testimonial from a staff member who came in and shared. There were other strategies that we tried to think about within scheduling to get the time in front of the student and parent to be less, to try to cut that down. What we found is, at least in the next 2 to 3 years, the calendar itself and how the days fall, it's going to be very difficult to try to move away from at least using 2 of the instructional pieces.
So to answer your question, procedurally, the board has not yet approved Ready, Set, Go for next year. So if this motion fails, then there still will be, at this moment, no board approval for Ready, Set, Go for next year.
Unless
If
there's,
somebody wants to pursue it, they're gonna bring back another plan for the board to vote on,
unless there's a specific amendment.
unless they're, yeah. So,
And the other reason why, and what we wanted to do was cap it. I mean, I think you were part of the discussion at Services, and to cap it so that Jared and his team can continue working on it. As he mentioned, we know that it's not yet in its perfect spot, but to continue to work that effort and spend resources on it with no, I hate to say guarantee of board approval, would be wasted effort. So the first thing we have to do is we have to free him up and his team to spend the resources to say, listen, we're going to design a system that's better than what we've had before, but still does not exceed 2 instructional days. And then this gives him the leeway to do that with his team. And of course, if it fails, as Tony just pointed out, then we either have to go back to the drawing board with a fully functioning Ready, Set, Go design that we ratify, which would be really, really detail oriented, require a lot of resources and still not get approved, in which case it'd be a waste of effort on everybody's part. Or we pick a different number of days and do the same thing all over again. Either way, this seemed to be a good balance between making sure that he knew he wasn't wasting effort and that we don't need to be involved with exactly how many minutes a teacher meets with a parent on which night, aside from the fact that we know that he and the staff are going to continue to optimize it. And so that's my 2 cents on the resolution.
But to me, this seems to, just raise the question that the time commitment for Ready, Set, Go utilize 2 instructional days versus maybe utilize Ready, Set, Go outside of instructional days.
That's true.
So, I mean, that's the question we're answering today. Not necessarily whether or not Ready, Set, Go has value, but more so that Ready, Set, Go has more value than 2 instructional days. That's this resolution. And I'm sitting back here and I want Ready, Set, Go conferences to continue. I've observed conversation for the over past 2 years of discussion and services where board members have asked for some more empirical data to support going to replace the instructional days with Ready, Set, Go conferences. And I do find value in anecdotal information that support it, but I'm also looking at it like the parochial school system has utilized Ready, Set, Go style conferences outside of instructional time for a long time. I think that it could be successful here as well. I also think that when we're in a situation where we're pursuing to be the best school district in the state of Wisconsin, that we're not removing instructional time. I have a tough time supporting this resolution as it's written when I haven't found a compelling enough argument that Ready, Set, Go conferences would be more enriching than instructional time at this point in time. I'm not saying that it's of no value. I definitely find value in it. I just don't find that anybody's really made the argument strong enough for me to believe that it is more enriching for our students.
Other board members' comments? Tina?
I guess two thoughts that I have. One, as far as finding non-instructional daytime to be able to have these conferences. I'm guessing we would run into contract issues and things like that as far as how much time teachers are giving outside of, the actual work day, or, I don't know exactly the details of that, but I'm guessing that would become an issue there. The other thought that I've had as far as Ready, Set, Go conferences, I know as a board, we're focused on the strategic plan and moving the needle on literacy and the school report card and things like that. And I'm taking a look at it like, okay, well, if our scores have been pretty flat over the last, 8 years or whatever, 10 years, whatever it's been, if the scores have been flat and we weren't doing Ready, Set, Go conferences and they had those instructional days and it didn't move the needle, so we're trying something new. And to me, it would seem like this, I agree with the data, like we want to have some kind of like, okay, is it valuable? Show me that it's valuable. I appreciate and trust, number one, the teacher input regarding that, because they're the professionals that are working at that, and if they find it to be a valuable thing. But the second thing is that it really seems to me that this is really the first year that we can claim, like, okay, this has been a normal school year. So really the beginning of this is the first year that we would see an impact. So I would imagine with a couple years of data, we might be able to, have some more of that information to quantify that. So I guess that's my thought, and I can understand why it would take 2 instructional.
Piggybacking on that, like we said in committee minutes, et cetera, it is a new program. We have asked for some potential modifications to it. Right now, it's very heavy reading focused and things like that. There are many ways that it could expand, but remember, it's year 1. So what would it be like in year 2? We want data, yes, that's been asked for, but what kind of data do you really get in year 1, where as we start to look at growth over time? I also look at the recommendation was made, can we be a little creative in terms of how we use Ready, Set, Go, maybe for some of those multifamily or whatever outside of the school day. So I think our administrative team was really rallying around what can we do to make this work? We know that we don't have a perfect scenario right now. There is room to grow, but unless we give a go ahead to do that, it's not going to grow. So I understand where you're coming from. Instructionally, when you look at the foundation that could be made within those, some of the presentations were outstanding of, hey, if this is done across the board, and so, okay, as an exemplar, can we now expand this so that it's all teachers? Because what's a new teacher getting in, and how are they doing it? If that is the case, then I don't want to use the word sacrificing. You losing those 2 instructional days, you're going to take a step or 2 back and gain 3 leaps forward over time.
I appreciate that. I do want to differentiate. There's 2 issues. One, the value of Ready, Set, Go. I don't think I've ever heard any argument from any board member or anybody else, for that matter, say that Ready, Set, Go conferences don't have value and that they want them to continue. It's a matter of whether they're taking up instructional time or not. And that's as black and white as it gets to me. And I would expect that if this were to fail, that perhaps maybe staff, the administration would come to the board and request an additional 2 days of professional development. I'm not saying that that would actually, I mean, I don't know what the outcome of that would be, but I would expect that that would be the next course. I want to hear the rationale behind that. Really, what it comes down to is, why can't it be outside of instructional time? I don't see why can't.
So I'm going to speak, I'm going to be brief, because I've spoken to this before. I'll say that I'm primarily coming from my experience as a parent being in these conferences. I think I'm the only one here. No, you've been to it. Yeah, that's right, two of us. And I always challenge myself that my personal experience doesn't necessarily reflect what everyone else gets, right? However, in this particular case, in 2 years, I've not heard anybody portray it as being substantially different from what I've experienced. So what I've experienced as a conference has 3 basic components. One is an orientation discussion. Here's how the classroom is laid out. Here's how the classroom is organized. Here's how the week is organized. That's literally a teacher repeating themselves 20 times. The next component is the reading assessment. Come back to that. And the third component is the parents talking with the teacher about, here's my child, here's what's special about my child, here's what our hopes are for the year. All right, let's go back to the reading assessment. My perception is we're acting like we don't know anything about our student coming in the door there. When in fact, for most of our students, they were with us the previous year, and we have copious amounts of quantitative and qualitative assessments of where that student is in reading. And yes, I recognize the learning loss that can occur over the summer slides, it's called, right?
Reading gain.
Yeah, it can fit. But the reality is that most kids come within a fairly narrow range of where they finished off. It's fairly predictable. And to go through, whether we do it within the context, frankly, if we're asking the wrong question, whether we do it in the context of Ready, Set, Go, or any other context, why are we doing that when we know where the vast majority of our students are? So there's the 3 components. One is teacher repeating themselves 20 times. Second one is things we should already know and do already know. Not should, we do already know about the vast majority of our students. And the third is that real interaction between the teacher and the parents. I look at that and I say there has to be a way to approach this differently. And I realize this resolution doesn't preclude the option of a 1 day, but in the conversations I heard at the committee level, it was pretty apparent to me that that's not going to happen, and it's coming back as 2 days. And that's all I'm going to say. Anyone else want to speak?
My comment would be where I share a lot of the sentiments that are there. I continue to hear from administrators and lead teachers of how they feel it has such high value. What at the board, or at the committee, what I believe the committee challenged administration is we have to hold that accountable and have to have a high standard that is actually happening. I.e., if we say that this makes reading groups have meet to them and have kids in the right seats, 2 weeks earlier, well, then we need to have an expectation that every elementary school kid is in the right reading group within, the first 5 days of school, and that's there. And then how do we take it and say, are they in the right math group? Are they in the right everything else that goes with it, and build that and have that be accountable so that there is, because I don't know that it's happening. What I sense is it's not happening with fidelity across all classrooms, all schools in the same way. And doesn't mean that there isn't stellar places where it is, and it has bringing very, very high value, but I think there's places where it is not necessary. And I guess that's, from my perspective, they continue to ask and I'm ready to support them and say, yes, but show me. Now, bring this and say, here's the value it's bringing to every student in every classroom.
Any other board members who haven't spoken yet that want to say anything? I'm trying to make sure we hear from all.
I'll just say I concur with Dave.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, but it's gonna take time to show, right? It's not gonna happen tomorrow.
Can I have one more 30-second piece? Not even 30-second, 10-second. The interaction that you have with families as a teacher, and you get those in November conferences. Oh man, I wish I would have had that 3 months ago. So where we talk a lot about reading and things like that, huge coming week 1. Oh my God, that really explains that child. And so yes, they might have been in that school, but as the teacher getting them for the first time, unless you're looping, that's a piece that also carries great weight. I went 45 seconds.
I was counting.
I know.
Anyone else?
I have one other sideline discussion item. I would make a recommendation that we remove stop the resolution after calendar. Per discussions held at the Educational Services Committee just clouds it to me because we had an hour-long discussion. And we have 3 sentences in the committee summary of it. So I would make a recommendation of that. And I think in general, we should be avoiding that from our resolutions of saying in committee discussions.
Yeah, and I guess that little piece on the end there was trying to capture what those of you from Ed Services are trying to tell everybody else on the committee, which is, I think what David Schrader said is, I want a resolution that says, as a board, we're behind this enough to do it, but let's cap it off somehow so that we're not debating every year or not whether we do Ready, Set, Go. It's how do we do Ready, Set, Go better? And right now our cap is 2 instructional days. If we can get better than that, or we can find ways to get outside of that, or it is 2 instructional days, but we find more value in how we are doing it to capture more instruction during the time we have it. Like Diana said about, maybe we can find a way to figure out how we do the math, or how we can, how can we make it more valuable so that when we do miss the 2 days of instruction, we are gaining more in the long run. That's what we were trying to capture with that part of the sentence. And it's really hard if you weren't at that meeting.
It's procedural to me, Jared. We can't take action in a committee. We had an hour-long discussion, and then we're trying to say, and similarly, I mean, in the previous resolution over this, it's like, we had plenty of discussion over this. This wasn't the exact document that we had different forms. I mean, just having clear, like, this is what we're actually approving. Would be I'd make a motion that we amend the resolution to end that calendar period. Is there a second on that?
Sure, I'll second that.
And after calendar period?
In the district calendar period.
All right, any comments or questions on the amendments? I will go ahead and call roll
On the amendment?
on the amendment only at this point. David Schrader?
Aye.
David Smith?
Yes.
Craig?
No.
Myself? Yes. Mike? Yes. Lori?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
All right, the amendment carries. All right, bringing us back to the parent motion 9171. Any further comments on 9171. All right, hearing nothing else, I'll go ahead and take roll. David Smith?
Yes.
Craig?
No.
Myself, I'm voting no. Mike?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
And David Schrader?
Yes.
And the motion carries. Okay. This brings us to public input. This is the second time on the agenda where members of the public may address the board, either in person or virtually. Do we have anyone online? All right, anyone in person? Nope. Okay. Then we have a closed session. Do I hear a motion to enter the closed session for the reasons stated in the agenda? Moved by Diana, seconded by Tina. Okay, roll call vote on that. Craig?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mike?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Tina? David Schrader?
Yes.
David Smith? Yes. All right, we are in closed session. We do not anticipate action after the closed session.